How's it going, everybody, and welcome to episode 285 of Master of Garden podcast. Now, this week's episode is one that we've actually covered before, and it's to go through the schedule of the Carlow Garden Festival. And this is not typically the type of episode I do, but over the last few years, the quality of speaker and the variety of speakers at the Carlow Garden Festival has been so good that it would be a shame not to sort of mention it, not to highlight it in a big way to you guys, the listeners. There's so much happening from the 26th of July until the 3rd of August. And as I said, last year there was a fantastic array and variety of speakers. It's no different this year. It kicks off on the 26th, and on the 26th there's Peter O'Mahony, who's coming across from his rugby exploits, along with Adam Frost in the Arboretum. And in between, there's a variety of speakers: June Blake, Mary Keenan, Rosie May, Fionnuala Fallon, Mick Kelly from GIY. There's a phenomenal amount of various speakers on different topics and different subjects across gardening. So, as I say, I think it's really, really worthwhile highlighting this. And to go through it with us is Eileen Rourke, CEO of Carlow Tourism. Carlow Tourism are the people who drive this festival and who arrange this festival every year. And as I say, it has been bringing together really, really good voices and gardening personalities over the last few years. So yeah, as I said, this year is fantastic. So Eileen, you're very, very welcome to Master My Garden podcast.
Thank you, John, for having me.
Yeah, lovely. As I said, we spoke last year just in relation to
Hmm.
the festival, and I did mention, that it was, in terms of the lineup, it was fantastic last year. This year is every bit as good. There's, fantastic array of speakers again. There's some kind of highlights. I know everyone loves that first night kickoff with Adam Frost in the Arboretum.
Yes.
But there's so much from day one through to the very end.
Hmm.
A lot of speakers. So we're going to do a little bit like what we did last year. We're kind of going to go through it day by day. I'll throw in my tuppence worth, when we get to it. But it kicks off on the 26th of July and runs right through to the 3rd of August. So a nice time, kind of events, two events a day, more or less, give or take. So let's kick it off on day one, and maybe what's the sort of the first event?
So we kick off on Saturday afternoon with a lovely foraging adventure down by the River Barrow in Loughlin Bridge. But I have to advise you, John, that that is already booked out and has been for a number of weeks.
I saw that one
So
actually was sold out already. Yeah.
yeah. So it's a very popular one. And Mary White, if anybody knows Mary White, she runs Blackstairs Eco Trails, so she does foraging walks and tree trails. She's a brilliant speaker and very informative. So
Mhm.
if you haven't got your ticket already, you'll just probably have to wait till next year.
Yeah, Mary's
Um,
actually someone that's on the radar for the podcast. I haven't had her on the podcast before, but I have, yeah, some couple of people have mentioned that she'd be well worth getting on, and so she's definitely on the radar. So yeah,
yeah, she's a very, very interesting and very, very knowledgeable.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So then that evening, as you said, we have our launch event, and it's a kickoff with two celebrities, really, as such. So Adam Frost will probably be very familiar to your own listeners from BBC Gardener's World. And we've also had him at the festival on a few occasions at this stage. But this time we're teaming him up with Peter O'Mahony, who himself is a celebrity for his exploits on the rugby field. And I suppose if anyone follows his Instagram and Facebook, they know that he's a really keen gardener. And the idea is Adam Frost is one of his, I suppose, people in gardening that he looks up to. And we decided then to try and pair both of them together. And
Hmm.
thankfully, it has worked out this year. What the format of the event will be kind of there's two sessions to it. So the opening part will be a discussion about gardening and why gardening is so good for us and why Peter has found gardening very beneficial to both his own personal and professional life as a kind of an escape from the rugby field and downtime and a chance to just, I suppose, devote the mind to something else. Adam
Mm.
himself is very into that whole area as well, about the importance of gardening for mindfulness, for inner peace. And then we will have a break in the talk, a short break, and then it will take on what I think will be a very informative twist, but a fun twist. So basically, Adam Frost will take Peter's garden, and he's going to suggest changes that he might
Okay.
like to see implemented in Adam's garden, in Peter's garden. And I'm sure there'll be a little bit of resistance along the way because anyone who follows him knows that he loves his box hedges and his lawns. But Adam will come up with a possible semi redesign of Peter's garden. And I suppose peppered throughout all of that will be lots of information about gardening and what grows well and what grows well together. And we'll see where the conversation takes us, whether Peter will agree to any of his suggestions or all of them. And then we finished that evening with a book signing from Adam Frost's books. The talk itself begins at 7:30, but we encourage people to come earlier because there's just so much to see in the Arboretum with the inspirational gardens. Then there's a two-course evening meal with tea and coffee prior to the talk at 7:30, if people would like to avail of that. And obviously you have everything else, that is the boutique, the shop, the kitchen store, the beautiful plant sales area. So it's a good afternoon stroke evening out.
Yeah.
And for those who are staying locally, this year what we worked with the Climate Action Office in Carlow County Council and with Ringalink, the local bus service, to actually provide a dedicated bus service from Carlow Town out to all locations on the Garden Festival. So that will kick in on Saturday, both for the foraging adventure with Mary White, but also then for the evening event with Adam Frost. And the whole idea is that it makes life easier for people in that, they get to sit back, maybe enjoy a chat with other people. They don't have to worry about the road and where they're going. And the bus leaves from the Woodford Dolmen, the Talbot Hotel, the Seven Oaks, and Carlow bus and railway stations.
Oh, yeah, that's a nice addition to have that sort of shuttle
Yes,
service.
because we've often been asked about, you know, people get to Carlow Town and then how do they get further?
Yeah.
And we've often been asked about the possibility of public transport. Um, and in most cases, it's not that easy. So we were delighted then when the Climate Action Office approached us and we decided to work with them and the Ring-a-Link service. And hopefully, everybody will enjoy the experience
Yeah.
because it takes a lot of the hassle of trying to get out to places and find them um, away from
Yeah.
people. Yeah.
Yeah, and for sure, and then when people are traveling to these events together, you'll be on the bus with like-minded people heading for the same event, and
Yes.
on the way back, you'll be able to chat about the event, and it's a bit of a community element. And I know
Yeah.
that, when you go to garden shows out, UK and Holland and so on, that shuttle bus service is typically there as well. So it sort of completes it, I think. I think it's a lovely addition this year, yeah. So it was a very good idea. To go back to the that main conversation that night, that I didn't know that was the twist, that there's going to be some changes to the garden. And for anyone that is listening and doesn't or hasn't seen Peter O'Mahony on, say, Instagram, for example, um, he loves his lawn for sure, and rugby fans will have seen that competitive nature that he has on the field. But when he's in the garden, it's a very different setting. And to hear you saying about the balancing of work life and so on, and it just so happens that his work is rugby, and a very competitive, very aggressive sport, and then to be able to come back to the calming um, gardening, I guess. And from watching the Instagram, there is a real difference there, and to be able to see that and hear about that, that'll be interesting. And then obviously the fact that there's a potential redesign of sorts on the garden, that's a nice twist and a nice, yeah, a nice sort of setup for the evening, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think it'll be very interesting. I think it'll be very informative, but also very enjoyable because we've had Adam Frost before, and he delivers a superb talk. We've had him now, I think, 3 years running. This will be our fourth year. He delivers a superb talk that's full of knowledge, but it's also yeah, it's also entertaining. And I think the fact that he is Peter's guru when it comes to gardening, I think that will work well when they're both speaking about, what they're willing to give up or what they're not willing to give up.
Yeah, no, that's a brilliant evening there, brilliant evening, and a good kick-off, as they say. On the next day, then the 27th of July, what's the sort of format that day?
So on the 27th of July, we have two events. We have June Blake talking in Angardian Bio, and June is talking all about gardening naturally. She has gardened without a huge use of insecticides for a number of years. So she's going to give an overview on how that can be achieved in people's own gardens. And then that afternoon at 3 o'clock, we have Matthew Wilson, and Matthew will be talking about two gardens that he managed when he was he was working for the RHS, and those are Hyde Hall in Essex and Harlow Car in Harrogate. And we had Matthew back in 2023 in Altamont Plant Sales, and he was really excellent. He was a brilliant speaker. So I think he'll give another very good talk. He's focusing really about, the challenges, the opportunities in terms of trying to transform these two lovely gardens. At Hyde Hall, it was a kind of a dry, windy hilltop site. And then in Harlow Car, it had a more wetter climate, and they both demand different approaches. So I think gardeners who attend will definitely get a huge amount of practical insights, from
Mhm.
plant selection to garden design to, adapting planting schemes to the climate and conditions in which they live. Um, and I think it will be, as I said, a very good talk.
Yeah, for sure. And June Blake that morning, she's fantastic. So a lot of people, she's a former guest of the podcast. A lot of people will be familiar with her garden, um, known for her brilliant use of color, hot borders particularly. She's brilliant at, and yeah, to hear about her garden and how she gardens, and it's in
Mm.
on Garden Bio as well, which is a lovely, lovely setting in Carlow
Yes,
Town,
it's
and
yeah.
it's actually brilliant for doing talks. I've given talks in there myself before, so it's a really nice setting for talks and presentations as well. So yeah, I think people will like that.
Suits it suits the subject title so well.
Yeah.
Um, and you know, I suppose June has gardened for many years without sprays or chemicals. She is a kind of a tolerant approach to weeds. So I myself am looking forward to hearing about that as to how she is a tolerant approach, plus she uses careful plants. And between both, I'm looking forward to seeing how she's still able to keep her garden looking really well.
Mm.
Um, and she's a very good speaker. We've had her on a number of occasions in the past.
Yeah, no, she's brilliant. She's brilliant. I suspect in terms of weeds, she distracts you in her own garden so that you don't see the weeds. There's so much else going on that you wouldn't even notice them. I'd imagine that that's a big part of it. Her garden is phenomenal at certain times of the year. As I say, her use of color is unbelievable. The hot borders, yeah. So I'd imagine, like most places, there is weeds there, but you're not going to notice them because there's so much else going on, so many other things to catch your eye. So yeah, no, that's another great day. And then onto the 28th.
Sorry, John, I forgot to mention, just if people are coming to Duckett's Grove, just to make them aware that there are also guided tours of Duckett's Grove that day. They're free of charge. You just book them online.
Hmm.
They're taking place at 2 o'clock, so for the hour before the talk, and then at 4:30 after the talk. And they're led by Danny McDade, and he's a brilliant local historian who has great knowledge on the Duckett family, um, the history of them coming to Carlow in 1695, everything that family would have been involved in till they left in the early years of the 20th century, because they had a really big impact on Carlow itself and the people who worked for them. And the guided tour will then be interspersed with some feedback from Eamon Wall, the head gardener out in Duckett's Grove, who will join the tour for the garden element.
Hmm.
And he will explain the approach they're taking to gardening there at the moment. And to say as well that there is a horse box, as in a horse box serving teas, coffees, kind of light treats on the day. And there are two lovely craft units that are in the original farmhouse buildings in the courtyard of Duckett's Grove. One is Nick Angel's Candles, so they hand marble candles, as the name suggests, beautiful candles, and then they also have crafts for sale from throughout Carlow from other makers. And then we also have the Red Admiral by Tanya Dean, and Tanya is making authentic Irish country clothing. So it's, tweed jackets, waxed coats, woolen jumpers, very nice, high quality, um, I suppose, clothes. And
Hmm.
that's also open on the day as well.
Lovely. Yeah, so there's lots there, and I know Eamon actually, Eamon, very good gardener. So, for
Yes,
the gardening element of that talk around Duckett's Grove, yeah, Eamon will be able to add lots of insight and a
yes,
very, very good gardener. So yeah, that'll be interesting for sure. On the
yeah,
28th, then we've another busy day. So
yes.
11 a.m. I think kicks off in Huntingbrook, I think. Or
Yeah, Huntington
Huntington
Castle.
Castle, sorry,
Yeah,
Huntington Castle, yeah.
yeah.
A garden that I worked in about 25 years ago. So a long time ago,
Okay.
but
Yeah,
yeah, beautiful, beautiful you walk there. Nice gardens, and yeah, that's the first talk of the day. So
yeah.
what is it about that?
So Thomas Pakenham has recently published a book, another book. It's not his first book by any means, and it's titled "The Tree Hunters: How the Cult of the Arboretum Transformed Our Landscape." So basically, the talk will focus on the 19th century tree hunters and their own passion for exotic species, and how that in turn from their travels and their expeditions fueled a whole wave of arboretum building across the UK and then in Ireland as well.
Hmm.
And he's a very, very witty speaker and a very good speaker, Thomas Pakenham. So for anyone who loves trees, anyone curious about botanical collections, anyone who loves gardens, I think this is going to be a very special talk and um, a gem of a talk, really. There's very good interest in it in the advanced bookings. And Thomas is bringing signed copies of his book on the day that if anybody wants to get one of those, it will be signed individually by Thomas.
Brilliant.
So that's the morning, and as you said, it starts at 11 o'clock, and then in the afternoon, we move on to Delta Sensory Garden. So the way the garden festival works is, usually it's the Monday and the Saturday. Delta and Huntington Castle share that day, so it's either morning or afternoon in one of the venues, and then it turns over for the following day, and they have the afternoon or the morning with the workshop. So on Monday in the afternoon, it's Fionnuala Fallon, and she's talking all about creating sustainable perennial cut flower garden. And I would have heard this talk perhaps 10 years ago. Fionnuala hasn't been um, back in Delta for a few years now, but it was a superb talk. And it's basically the whole idea of it is how to create a beautiful, long-lasting flower garden um, that's really in harmony with nature and that supports biodiversity in the environment.
Yeah.
And the whole idea is to look at plants, hardy, pollinator friendly perennials that thrive in Irish conditions and that really offer good value in terms of being a cut flower and then going into your vase in the home.
Yeah, and she's replicating what she's doing at her own home and business
Yes,
anyway.
yes.
And yeah, I haven't heard this talk, but I know people who have, and they said it's a fantastic talk. And
What's a fantastic talk. And she goes into everything from, the soil health, plant division, mulching, organic pest control. It's a really interesting talk.
yeah, and it's actually something we've covered on the podcast quite recently, how to create your own cutting garden, and this will be another extension of that. I think it's a it's going to be a very good talk now. I would think that one. So yeah.
Yeah.
That's the 28th. So yeah, we're not even half. I think we're halfway through the festival now, and there's already a fantastic array of speakers. So
Hmm.
moving on to the 29th, then what have we got?
So on the 29th, your listeners will probably know of John McCullen, Dr. John McCullen. He was the chief park superintendent in the Phoenix Park
Yeah.
for a number of years. And he published back in 2009, um, he published a history of the Phoenix Park up until 1880. So this talk takes us from 1880 to 1980. And I think it's going to be, again, a really interesting talk. John has a lovely kind of approachable style of presenting. Um, so during that time, there would have been the introduction of the ornamental plantations and the landscape schemes, and then infrastructural developments as well, like the bandstand, the tea kiosk. The park's own physical landscape underwent a lot of changes, and then there would have been a lot of large scale events hosted in the Phoenix Park. I suppose the one that I remember would be the 1979 papal visit.
Hmm.
But I would have heard people talking as well about the Eucharistic Congress that went there in 1932, and even further back, the international speed trials in 1903 that were connected to Gordon Bennett that would
Wow.
have come down around this area as well,
Yeah, yeah.
Carlow and Kildare. So again, I think that'll be a very interesting talk for anyone. We're probably all familiar with the Phoenix Park and have been in it on a number of occasions. And John will also have copies of his book available on the day as well.
Super.
And then that afternoon, we go over to Hardymount Gardens. So always we have Altamont in the morning, and then we head over to Hardymount Gardens in the afternoon. And we meet Dara Stone, who's the head gardener of Dennis Moat Gardens up in the Dargle Valley in Dublin. And basically, I suppose in 1988, Adam Clayton of U2 would have purchased that estate and thereafter started just a whole journey to restore and enhance the gardens. Um, they've planted about 4,000 trees and restored the garden to its original splendour. And it was, I think last year, it was on BBC Gardener's World. Adam Frost featured it.
Hmm.
So this is an opportunity to really find out more about the gardens, their plantings, their magnolias, their rhododendrons. They're very known for those. And then after that, there is the afternoon tea on the lawns of the walled garden, on the lawns of Hardymount Gardens, and anyone who would like to visit the walled garden, which is a beautiful walled garden maintained for many years by the late great gardener Sheila Reeves Smith and now maintained by her daughter Justina and son-in-law Mark McKeever. So it's another lovely event. And I suppose what I say to people, an afternoon tea is a delectable thing at its best, but this is even no ordinary afternoon tea. It's just a superb spread, very best of Irish ingredients, and it's a lovely way to finish off the afternoon.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, it sounds like a gorgeous day for sure.
Yeah.
And then we're on to the 30th then, I think, are we?
We're on to the 30th then, and on the 30th we're in Burton House in the morning, and then we're in Shankill Castle in the afternoon. So in Burton House it's Seamus O'Brien, and last year Seamus went on a summer expedition to Yunnan in China. And it's basically looking at his 18-day trip. He went in July last year, and it was peak flowering season. Blue poppies in particular, they were very rare, and then rhododendrons were in abundant flowering season at the time, and also Himalayan lilies. So Seamus will guide us through everything they found on that trip, and that's at 11 o'clock in the morning in Burton House. And then at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we go over to Shankill Castle. And I can't really pronounce Tangi's surname, so I'll do my best, but it's Tangi de Toolgoot from the Dunmore School, the Dunmore Country
Dunmore
School.
Country School. Yeah, again, another former guest of the podcast.
Very good.
In fact, we did an episode or a two-part episode on companion planting, and that continues to be one of the most popular episodes of the podcast. A fantastic gardener, really, really unique techniques that he's been using in his own garden, in his own Dunmore Country School for years and years. Yeah, that'll be an unbelievable talk.
Very good. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And he has a strong name. He writes himself for the Irish Garden as well. And he's going to look at biodiversity friendly practices, permaculture, his own kind of French style potager gardening. So it should be a very good talk as well.
Yeah, for sure. Then in the afternoon, or
That's
the afternoon. So
on the Wednesday, and then we're on to Thursday, and we have Sarah Eberle, who's another of our UK speakers this year, and she's basically sharing the story of winning 19 Chelsea gold medals
wow.
in Chelsea, with those in attendance at Burris House. And she began exhibiting at Chelsea with a garden on the main avenue. And then, since then, she's had gardens in every single garden category, from artisan to sanctuary to major show gardens, exhibits in the Grand Pavilion. So the idea is to take the audience on a journey of the joys, but also the pressures of Chelsea, and revealing, lots of useful planting tips, that everybody can take home and try for themselves. And she's also going to look at the trends that have come and gone and probably come again within her gardening career. And I think we had a lovely talk there last year with Bonnie Guinness, and I think that's going to be an equally enjoyable talk this year.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And that afternoon, then we take over to Kilgraney House and Herb Gardens. So we're in Burris House at 11 o'clock. And then there are two sessions with Mick Kelly of GIY in Kilgraney House and Herb Gardens, which is just a couple of miles over the road. The first one is at 3 o'clock, and the next one is at 5 o'clock. And I suppose, as somebody who grew up just having to run to the garden to get literally outside our door at home to get the freshest of every kind of vegetable imaginable. My father was a brilliant vegetable gardener. Now, he wasn't that interested in the flowers, but loved vegetable gardening, and how much we took it for granted and didn't realize what we had at all. And now, um, as someone who just buys vegetables in the supermarket, I love the title of this, Food Empathy, Growing Your Own Food for a Healthy, Sustainable Future. So for all of us who aspire to actually getting back to even a smidgen of what people did 30 or 40 years ago, um, I think this is a very good talk.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, that it'll be a brilliant talk. Mick is brilliant. The whole GIY movement is very good. And that's something that, what you just said there, that's something that we work very hard on the podcast, and we talk a lot about is people growing their own food, showing people, teaching people how to do that. So yeah, that'll be a really, really, really good talk for sure.
Yeah. So we have two sessions there, 3 o'clock and 5 o'clock. So they tend to get booked up quite fast. So what we've done for the past couple of years is we've added a second talk at 5 o'clock. So if people don't make the first session, we always say, take a walk through the village of Burrs, a beautiful village. The step house straight opposite the gates of Burrs House is open. If people want to enjoy, a late lunch or a relaxed cup of tea or coffee, and if you don't make the 3 o'clock, well, then you'll be able to head on to the 5 o'clock one.
Very good.
And then the following day, we have the double header in Altman Plant Sales. The first talk in the morning is at 11 o'clock. It's from the back garden to gold medals by Rosie Hardy. She's an RHS vice president. And then later that day at 3 o'clock, we have Nick Bailey, again, a fairly regular presenter on BBC Gardener's World. And Nick is going to talk about designing gardens in 10 easy steps. Now, there's a change to the format somewhat of this event for this year, John. So we always had this as a full day ticketed event. So you bought your ticket for the two talks. This year we decided to offer them as individual talks. So they cost €20 each. But if people want to stay for the full day, and we think both speakers merit the investment of time for the full day, it's a reduced fee of €35.
Okay.
So Rosie Hardy, again, she started off in her own back garden, and she also has gone on to win a number of Chelsea Gold medals. And she talks about, what it takes to actually succeed to such a level on the Chelsea stage. But then she's also going to focus quite a bit of her talk on planting advice, choosing the right plants for the conditions, long-lasting colour, and kind of maintaining structure in the garden. And that will be a very good talk. And in the afternoon then, Nick Bailey covers, as it says on the tin as such, designing the garden, 10 easy steps. He's going to cover selecting the right plants for the right space, how you get year-round interest in the garden, how you get colour into it all the time, how you can try and revamp a tired-looking garden, or if you're starting from scratch, how you do that as well. And I heard Nick's talk in Duckett's Grove in 2023, and again it was a packed out talk, very, very interesting talk on the day, and he's promised to share with us kind of some of the, I'm not saying juicy gossip, but some of the little tidbits that come from being a presenter on BBC Gardener's World, and all the behind the scenes insight that happens in the gardening world as well. So that's the key day in Altman Plant Sales. And we leave a nice break between the morning and the afternoon talk. So we start at 11:30. We're finished kind of about 1 o'clock. There's a good 2 hours then till 3. So people love to walk down the main gardens. There's obviously Sugar and Spice Cafe. They're doing salads and sandwiches. Um, and for anyone who wants something, a main course lunch, the Forge up at the Crossroads, about a mile from Altamont, has just reopened, and they're open on the day, obviously, doing lunches.
Oh, I didn't know that had reopened. That used to be
Yes.
brilliant. Yeah, it used to be
Yes.
really good.
Yeah.
And we passed it. I was in Altamont not that terribly long ago, but less than a month ago. But
Yeah.
we would have been in the Forge lots of times over the years as you'd be traveling typically towards Wexford. Um,
Yeah.
and
It was a good stop.
oh, it was a great stop. Yeah, and
Yeah. Yeah.
I was surprised it was closed because it was always chock a block when you went into it. That's good to know it's back open.
Yeah, it's back open, and under um, Phil and Kay are the two owners involved. Phil is the chef, Kay is front of house,
Brilliant.
and but a lot of the focus on local, the warm hospitality, that's still
Excellent.
very strong. So it's
Yeah,
great to
that's good.
see it reopened.
Yeah,
Yeah.
brilliant. Yeah, for sure. So then we're heading for the last couple of days here now. So
Yeah.
what's
So on Saturday, then the 2nd of August, this is our day when we split between Delta and Huntington Castle. So in the morning, we have Mary Keenan, and Mary Keenan is talking about designing and planting a fragrant garden. And I suppose Mary has a huge amount of experience in this because she's owner of Gash Gardens in County Laois. And obviously, she's had big roles in public park design, editor of the Irish Garden. So she'll have lots of practical advice and inspiration for people. And basically, she will focus on the right plants, the right choices to fill the space with scent throughout the year. So everything from old-fashioned roses and sweet peas to herbs, aromatic shrubs. So that's in the morning and it's at 11 o'clock. And then anyone who would like to, they can go on a guided tour after the walk around the gardens. And in the afternoon, then we go to Huntington Castle and we meet the celebrated garden writer Robin Lane Fox. He's, I think, the longest gardening columnist in the UK. He writes for the Financial Times. He's written a number of books as well. So he's going to look at how gardening itself is changing and his kind of tried and trusted shortcuts that can really help transform a garden space without too much effort or maybe less effort than you might have thought necessary. And again, I think this is our third time over all the years having Robin, but like Thomas Pakenham, he's a very, very witty speaker, but also a very knowledgeable speaker. So he's there in the afternoon at 3 o'clock, and that leads us in nicely into the last day, which is Sunday, the 3rd of August. In the morning, we're doing a guided walk of the Bean Barrow Experience Gardens in Bagnallstown with Rosie May, um, also a writer in the Irish Garden, and obviously she's a big social media presence as well with the Insomniac Gardener. And she'll take us through the 10 different gardens within the Beam Barrow Experience Gardens, and they're beautiful. Beam, for your listeners who aren't aware, it's a training centre for people with disabilities, and the participants would maintain the gardens there. And over the years, they've added a number. They have a mindfulness garden, a French garden, a convent garden, because the site would have originally belonged to the nuns, the monastic courtyard, reflective garden, a water garden. So there are 10 of them there. So that'll be a really interesting walk. But again, we always know that our gardeners love picking up tips. So it's practical advice as well on planting and composting and garden structure and colour. And then that afternoon, we have a walk and talk with Éanna Ní Launa at the forest in Rathwood. So to the right-hand side of the entrance to Rathwood is a beautiful forest. I think it's about 170 acres of native flora and fauna. And Lena will take us on a guided walk there. You park within the car park in Rathwood, and we will take the visitors down then to the forest itself. And she will go through the importance of our forest for biodiversity, for our native fauna, um, and that's as well proving to be a very popular walk. So it'll be just literally walking under beech, oak, birch, Douglas fir, and learning all about the importance of trees to our daily lives.
Yeah, for sure. And the last couple of days there, like some fantastic speakers. You mentioned Mary Keenan, again, a
Mm,
fantastic gardener, and going to talk about, well, her experience, which is phenomenal. Her gardens themselves, Gash Gardens, are brilliant. And if she's talking about, as you said, putting the right plant into the right place, or that type of a talk,
mm,
you'll get really good practical advice. And Rosie May, obviously, a fantastic gardener, brilliant speaker as well, and really, really good at, I suppose, translating information that people can take away. As you say, gardeners like to get things that they can take away and use in their own gardens, and definitely Rosie is one of the best at that. She makes things sound, and shows things that are simple to do. And yeah, really great 2 days there. So again, a fantastic lineup of speakers the whole way through. So yeah, well done again on putting this all together.
Well, you were very kind at the beginning, John, in that you were saying Carlow Tourism brings the festival and arranges the festival, but we do it very much in tandem with the Carlow Garden Trail Committee.
Yeah.
And our chairperson is Robert Miller of Altum Plant Sales. And then all the members would feed into the program very strongly. They would all have their own thoughts as to potential speakers. And that's really what makes it great. I suppose we do a lot of the practical things in terms of organization, bookings, all of that. But one thing that I hear again and again from people is, above all, they love the speakers, that the
Mhm.
speakers are so knowledgeable and so varied. And there's, different topics. There's something to suit everybody, really. So it's the members of the Garden Trail who come up with those. So the biggest debt is to that committee.
Yeah, for sure. I know, and it is fantastic, fantastic lineup again this year. There's so many there that people would be interested in, and it's definitely, it's unique in that it's several days in a row. What is it, 5 or 6 days in a row, and
It's actually nine. It's
9 days. Wow.
yeah.
And yes,
We know because we collapse in the heat when the ninth day is over.
yeah, but someone can sort of make a nice mini break out of it and take in 2 or 3
Yes.
days, or they can make a full
Yeah.
holiday out of it and take in a week. People
Yeah.
that are into that, and it's unusual to have such a collection and variety of speakers in a relatively condensed space. You'll often see these individual speakers coming for brilliant talks here and there, but to
Mm,
have such a variety and to
yeah.
have so much over the course of 9 days, as you said, it's a fantastic lineup. Um, yeah, so well done again. It sounds brilliant. I'll put the link for tickets in the show notes so people can click through there. One or two are sold out. Others are definitely in high demand. So if you are interested or you have any mind to go, just start having a look now at your tickets, because yeah, as I say, some of them do sell out. Eileen, it's been brilliant having you on again to hear all about Carlow Garden Festival. Well done on
Exactly,
everything
John.
that's organised, and thank you very, very much for coming on Master My Garden podcast. So that's been this week's episode. A huge thanks to Eileen for coming on. As I say, really, really great lineup again. It was a fantastic lineup for the last few years, but this year is, yeah, top class. As I said, the variety, that's really what catches the eye. Is you get every type of speaker. So whether it's the historical garden element that interests you, whether it's the growing your own food that interests you, whether it's planting combinations, gardening sustainably, foraging, there's something for everybody there, and I think that's the big thing. Then you're going to see obviously a lot of the gardens from Carlow Garden Trail as part of those talks, and I think that's another added bonus to that. So yeah, really, really worth checking out. Link for tickets is in the show notes, and yeah, I think you'll get something for it if you do come along and visit. And that's been this week's episode. Thanks for listening, and until the next time, happy gardening.